All right, in this video, we're going to be going over the types of triangles. Now, triangles can be classified or categorized by two different things. We can categorize them based on the angles that we find on the triangle, or we can categorize them based on the congruent marks. Now, we'll go over congruent marks in just a minute, but it should come back to you because we've done this in class before. So we have an acute angle, which we know is less than 89 degrees, or equal to 89 degrees. And our triangle, if it's an acute triangle, all angles are acute in a triangle. Now you're probably thinking, well, isn't that always true? Not necessarily, because I'm going to show you the difference between right and obtuse. But for an acute angle triangle would be something like this. You can see that every single one of these angles is going to be an acute angle. So right here we're going to write acute, and acute. All these angles are acute, so that makes it an acute triangle. Now when we have a right triangle, this is a triangle with one right angle. A triangle can never have two right angles. It can only ever have one right angle. So if we make a triangle like this and we say this is the right angle, this would be called a right triangle because it has that right angle there in the corner. Now an obtuse triangle is exactly what it sounds like. A triangle with one obtuse angle. So I always just start out with drawing an obtuse angle like this. That would be an obtuse angle. It's greater than 90. And then just connecting the two corners there. So there's lots of different ways that you can see an obtuse. That one's kind of difficult to use. Let me try a different one. If you do this one, you can see that that's an obtuse angle. And let me connect the lines there. Okay, so not only can you look at the angles that are in the triangle to classify it, but you can also look at the congruent marks. So let's review the congruent marks. If we have an equilateral triangle, that means all sides and all angles are equal. That's why it's called an equilateral triangle. All sides and all angles are equal. So when we draw an equilateral triangle, we use congruent marks. So for the side lengths, we put one mark on each side, and that shows that all three sides are the same length. No matter what length it is, if it's 100 feet or 1 inch, they're all going to be the same length. And then to show how all the angles are equal, we put the little angle marks in the corner, kind of like a curve situation. We put one in each corner. And that represents that they're all equal to each other. If you remember in class, I showed you the trick with E. There are 3 lines on the E that are going this direction, going left and right. So all 3 angles and all 3 sides are the same. Now when we get to isosceles, if I make a capital I, there's only 2 lines that are going left and right. So that means that 2 sides and 2 angles are equal. That means one of the sides and one of the angles is going to be a little different. So let's draw our triangle. If I say that this side length and this side length are the same, I put 1 mark. But this other side length is different. So in order to show that, I have to put 2 marks to show that it's different. Now, you can't just go through here and start marking angles. The angles have to go in a certain way. The angle across from the 1 mark also gets 1 mark. The angle across from the other 1 mark also gets 1 mark. So this angle and this angle are equal to each other. They're the same measurement. You can see that because there's one mark. But then the angle across from the 2 marks gets 2 marks. So the angle up here is going to be different. Now if we move on to scaling triangle, if you make a capital S, there are no straight lines going left and right. So that means that none of the sides and none of the angles are the same. None of the sides and none of the angles are equal or the same. So this one gets a little bit more complicated when we draw because we're going to have a lot of marks going on. So if I put 1 mark here, I can't put just 1 mark on this side because the definition says none of them are the same. So I have to put 2 marks here and 3 marks on the other side to show that none of them are the same. Even if they look it, the measurements are there. So across from the 1 mark, I'm going to put a 1 angle. Across from the 2, I'm going to put a 2 angle. And then across from the 3, I'm going to do 3. So this angle is different, this angle is different, and this angle is different. Okay, so now that we've classified the triangles, we need to figure out what is the measurement inside of the angles inside the triangle. So the interior means inside. Angles of a triangle add up to 180 degrees. So, first of all, this is a right triangle because we have a right angle. So that's a good way to classify it. Right triangle. Okay, so I know that this one is going to be 90 degrees. If I know that this plus this equals 180, then I can make an equation. X plus 90 plus 45 equals 180. Now, I'm going to stop here and I want you to pause it and see if you can figure out the answer for X. Okay, so first thing you should have done is put these two together. These are like terms because they're both constants, so we can put them together. And that makes, whoops, not equals, X plus 135 equals 180. Now to get X by itself, I would subtract 135 from both sides. And you get X equals 45. So on your assignment, you're going to have to create this equation. So make sure you're paying attention to that. Now on this one's a little different. If you look at your congruent marks, 1 mark, 1 mark, and 1 mark. So this classifies as an equilateral triangle. And we know that equilateral triangles, all the side lengths are different. Well, that's great. We don't really need to know side lengths because we're trying to find out degree measurements. But if all the side lengths are the same, the definition also tells us that all the angles are equal. So if this and this and this are all equal, if I know that this one is 60, X also has to be 60, and Y also has to be 60 because they are equal to each other. Now, there is one I want to go over with you real quick because it's on your assignment. So if you'll just flip over to the back page, I'm going to draw a triangle here on the back. You don't have to take a picture of this when you submit it. I just want to go over it with you real quick. And I have these marks on it. I have a mark here, and 45 degrees in this corner. And the question wants you to figure out what if this is A, B, and C. It wants to know what's the measurement of angle A. Well, the first thing I notice is these congruent marks. And these congruent marks tell me a lot of information. This tells me that this is an isosceles triangle, which also tells me that the angles across This is 1, and this is 1. So A and C are the exact same measurement. So in order for me to figure this out, I know that A plus C has to equal, A plus C plus 45 has to equal 180. I also know that A and C are the exact same measurement. So if I say A is X and C is X, they're the same thing. Plus 45 equals 180. So if I put these two together, that's going to give me 2 X's. If I have one pencil plus another pencil, I get 2 pencils. Plus 45 equals 180. And then you can solve from here. Now, another way you could do this is say, okay, well, I'm starting at 180. If I take away 45 from it, that's going to give me, carry my 10, carry my 7, that's going to give me 135. Okay? And so 135 has to be split evenly between these two because these two are left and they're equal to each other. So you could do 135 divided by 2, which is exactly what we're doing down here. Notice you're going to subtract 45, and then you're going to divide by 2 and divide by 2. So it's exactly what we're doing, just a different way to think about it. So when you divide this, you get 67.5. So angle A is 67.5, and angle C is also 67.5.